think all of us are here. All right, we are live. And if we have any additional advocates who will be joining us, they'll be able to join the live stream as well. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm calling the meeting of the Election Law Subcommittee to order on February 18th, 12:33 p.m. So we are going to get started with House Bill 738. This bill alters the deadline by which a certificate of candidacy for a successor candidate for governor or lieutenant governor must be filed. And so basically what this does is make sure that SBE has enough time to make any changes and that we are not trying to put new people on the ballot after the ballots have already been printed. So it's just correcting for those sorts of changes. If you look at the bill, it's mainly just deadline and date changes. Are there any questions about this bill?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would just ask: is this the bill to help with the Kevin Kaminet's situation that occurred?
Yes, it is, and I'll ask Jared to say more.
Sure, thank you. So under the
Jared,
yes.
I'm loving the fro, man. What's going on?
It's it's the COVID hairstyle. I gotta say,
keeps getting better.
exactly.
It really does keep getting better. It really does.
I've tried every now and then. It's got a mind of its own. So there are people that want to try to straighten it. My girls try to tease it and do all sorts of things with it now. So it's until I have to come back into the office. But thank you. Yes, but back to the bill. Basically Kevin Kamenetz, his death was very close to when early voting was starting, and ballots had already been printed and were sent out to military and overseas voters, and so there was issues with confusion and replacement candidates and pulling back ballots. This entire time frame now clears up the entire process here. It makes it so that when we had last year, we had a calendar bill to look at when the ballot productions had to be done. This was kind of like a little bit of we didn't address this at that time there because there was issues about whether the lieutenant governor was going to be a part of the ticket in the primary. So there was going to be other things that might have been addressed. So we waited until this year to address this. Basically, the cutoff date for ballot printing is 64 days before an election. It makes it so that if a candidate dies or is disqualified 70 days prior to an election, the Central Committee can replace that candidate, or the governor or lieutenant governor can choose a successor candidate for their ticket and still remain on the ballot and have the correct information to the public. If it's within the 69-day window, then the candidate will appear as is, and then it will just go the normal vacancy process. But the Kamenetz situation was a perfect example of the confusion and what candidates were and the signage and everything else that was impossible to do. So this kind of helped cleared it up, and there was just one small technical amendment I think that the chair was going to introduce for me because we missed one deadline in the when we were drafting it, and Stan picked it out for me as well. So I appreciate both. Both of them.
Can I just ask a follow-up question? I know the other issue in that was that they were candidate. They were he chose the lieutenant governor candidate, and then that lieutenant governor candidate did not raise any money.
Right.
So the issue also was that how does that campaign finance fund that the candidate had, the gubernatorial candidate had? this
This does
doesn't-
not address that at
does
all.
not address that.
Right, yeah. There was that campaign, we had given advice that they could have moved the money into the Slate account, and then the Slate account would have been able to transfer the money into the Lieutenant Governor's account. They did not choose to do so. It was within their right to do that. We didn't have to, and that's where the state board's advice ended. The rest was between the two parties.
Got it. Thanks.
No problem.
And just really quickly, we're going to go to Delegate Feldmark next, but just to flag, as Mr. Demarinis mentioned, on page 5, there's just one amendment where it was just an omission in terms of one of those, a number change. So you'll see in the amendment that's in your email that it just goes from 10 days to 65 days, which was just an omission there. Delegate Feldmark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is kind of building on that last question. I just want to clarify, this bill would not change any of the process for what happens if a candidate's name is on the ballot but passes away before the election takes place, right? It only deals with the deadline to align it with printing ballots, but the process for dealing with that situation, none of those other details are changing in this bill. Is that correct?
Exactly. Right. Yes. Right.
Great question. Delegate Vice Chair Washington.
Yeah, I was going to ask just a follow-up to that question again. Did SBE not think of, I mean, I know you guys are proposing this bill, but did you guys not consider any of the other issues that arose from that situation? I mean, what were the other issues? I mean, like the campaign finance thing, I mean, that was a big issue for that candidate that eventually ran, but then stepped out and didn't run a successful.
Those were more policy driven. I'd be happy to discuss it with you about, if you want to get the solution. This is a very technical fix, and
No, of course, yeah.
Right. So most of our departmental bills are just kind of technical in nature and not sweeping in policy changes. But I'll be happy to discuss that with you about, solutions or anything that for
Fair enough.
next time.
Okay.
So yes. Thanks.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I moved the amendment. Did you propose it yet? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Sort of.
I moved the amendment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All right, any opposed? No abstentions. All right, the amendment carries. So now we're discussing the bill as amended.
Unfavorable.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the bill carries. We're moving House Bill 738, favorable with amendment. Wonderful. Okay. The next bill we're slated to discuss is House Bill 656, Election Law, Early Voting Centers, Accessibility by Public Transportation. This bill, as it came in, required that in a county that has a fixed route public transportation service, that each early voting center must be located not more than 500 feet from the stop. So there is an amendment on this bill that makes an important change, and the amendment basically makes it so that if an early voting center is located within a half mile of a public bus route, that the bus that's operating on that route will have to stop at the early voting site during the time that early voting is open. So this is a bill that SBE and I think jurisdictions worked on. If someone can give some more background on that amendment. So I think this is something that the various groups came together around. Jared or Stan.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yes, I worked with the delegate and with Mako on this for the idea of the amendments on this process here. So it basically, it's not to put undue burden on election administrators to try to find polling or early voting centers near bus or stops at all, because then it limits us for geographic areas, and it doesn't put an undue burden on the counties to then divert buses to areas that they're not normally stopped. So it's basically taking their fixed route and saying, if you're along the route there, you have to stop, or if you're near a half a mile from those stops, that it's a small little little detour for voter convenience there. And so everyone kind of agreed that this would be the best policy without complicating it and making it burdensome on either parties. So this is a win-win type of situation.
Any additional thoughts or questions? Do we have a motion on this bill as and the amendment?
Move the amendment.
Second.
A question.
It's been moved and seconded in discussion. Delegate Long.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So this would require the state MTA to reroute their buses? Or is this county only?
I think it's county, but if someone can confirm.
It's a either. I mean, it just says a public bus route.
Okay.
But it doesn't say that they have to reroute them.
Right, it just has to stop.
It has to stop
Within a half
if there is a polling place, a voting center on the route.
I thought
Within a
the
half
way it
mile.
read, that if there was a voting center within a half a mile, that you have
Yes.
to stop and by the voting center. Am I correct?
That is
So
correct.
it would
Right.
actually make the route, it could change the route of the way the MTA bus runs, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
little, yeah.
thank you.
A little bit, yeah.
a little bit.
No more.
All right, lots of questions. I think I saw Delegate Jones' hand first, then Vice Chair Washington and Delegate Shoemaker.
Just clarification, it's only within a half a mile, correct? Stan, thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Washington.
Does this cover Metro? Like the Metro?
Metro Bus.
Yeah, Metro
Oh.
buses like
Oh, you
WMATA.
got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then can we control WMATA, what they do? I mean, do we have that ability? I mean, I guess we do if we pay them, right? But I just wondered, and how would this get to them, right? Like, if I'm thinking about my area where I know there's a bus route in front of one of my early voting centers or near, how do we get the message to them that, hey, guys, you got to stop here in front of the early voting center, right? Like, how do we get that message to
I
them?
think that would be the responsibility of the local board to work with,
I think that's
tell them, alert them to
Hey,
the fact.
Delegate Shoemaker, you're not muted.
I think it would be the responsibility of the local board to notify WMATA of the requirements of the law and work with them to make sure it happened.
Got it. Okay.
Delegate Shoemaker was next.
So, I mean, this bill's been modified a little bit. So do we have like an updated fiscal note for this thing? What's it cost to do this? Do we know?
We do
No.
not have an updated fiscal note, no.
Okay, I didn't think so. I didn't see one, so.
All right, Delegate Feldmark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this question about sort of who the bus service is provided by it got me looking at the language again, and I'm wondering, it says, if an early voting center is located within 1/2 mile of a fixed public bus route, buses operating on that route shall stop. So it doesn't specify local service, and I'm not
Right.
sure, is that intentional? Like, are we trying to make commuter buses stop also?
I guess nobody thought about commuter buses. I mean, that's not really the intent, certainly. But it is intended to be any fixed public bus route.
But I mean, I guess, I think the intent there is local service, right? So, I mean, because
I don't know that that's necessarily true, because
Oh,
like
okay.
in Baltimore City and in the Baltimore metro area, I mean, the MTA is the primary public bus.
Right, so MTA provides local service in Baltimore City, but MTA also runs commuter bus routes,
Correct.
jurisdictions that may pass within a 1/2 mile. I'm not sure if we're trying to catch those also.
Yeah, I think probably not. I mean, and that could be a clarifying amendment, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to clarify that.
I mean, I'm not sure what the,
I guess you could just insert the
is.
phrase of a fixed public bus route other than a commuter bus route, if that works for the subcommittee.
Jessica? Oh, Delegate.
I mean, that might work. I'm not really sure what the best way to capture that. I'm just thinking there's different kinds of bus service, and I'm not sure we want it to apply to all of them. I'm not sure what else might be excluded, but.
I think did I see Delegate Long with his hand up? Delegate Long, and you're on mute.
Thank you. I have a lot of concerns what this effect will have on MTA, because a lot of people who live in my district depend on MTA to get to work. They have a time bus schedule, which MTA does, and people have to be at work at a certain time. And now you're going to add a mile, because if they go a 1/2 mile one way, they have to come back another 1/2 mile another way. And that's if it's under perfect conditions. My concerns are is the other riders on the boat. On the bus. I understand what we're trying to do here, but I just wanted to bring that up. It just seems like to me we have to look at a different way of doing this, because I can just see all kind of problems. That's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Long.
Thank you.
Delegate Jones?
Thank you. It is my understanding, though, that this would just be within a 1/2 mile and it would stop on the route. So we're not necessarily going out of our way, and potentially we're talking about a minute or a few minutes, I should say, and not necessarily going, across town or anything if you're on a different route. This really would be on the way. Is that true, Chairwoman?
Yes, that's the intent of the bill, that the bus would take a slight detour to the early voting center 1/2 mile and then resume its route.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Vice Chair Washington, did you have your hand up, or was that from before?
No, it's for now. I'll clarify what Delegate Jones just clarified too. I don't know what a commuter bus is. If somebody can explain what that is is that different from a metro bus? Is that like, what is that? What is a bus?
Well, I can explain the basis of my question was, for instance, in Howard County, we have a local bus service, but then MTA runs commuter routes from sort of, park and ride type areas, either a shopping center or an actual park and ride, where it's a commuter route into Baltimore, or we also have ones that, go down to DC. But, so there are commuter bus services that are not local service.
Got it. Okay. Just so I know. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know like what the intent of it. I mean, we all get the intent of the bill, right? For for them to be more accessible to the early voting center or the vote or the precinct, the voting center. So we know they're still going to stay on their route. They just have to stop at the nearest point. So a person, and is that what the amendment saying? No?
No, so I should clarify that. It says stop at the center. So the idea is that they pull up in front of the center
detour.
and stop. So that's the way the amendment's drafted. If it's your preference that they just stop at the point on the route that's closest to the center, but don't deviate from the route, then you would need to specify that. But the language of the amendment right now says they stop at the center. They have to go to the center and pull up in front of the doors.
And this is, oh, wow. So this is only during the early voting center, right? This is only during early voting, only during those times of early voting. That's it. Outside of that, they can do whatever the hell they want, whatever they need.
Yeah. And I'll say, we're having a lot of discussion on this, really great discussion on it. I think we probably won't vote on this one today. I like us to get all of our questions out and make sure that if there's anything that we're missing, to raise it now and have some more time to think this through for possible amendments. So we can continue the discussion, maybe Vice Chair Washington, if you have anything else, and then Delegate Lasanti. But we'll hold on this one and digest it a little bit more.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, hold on, I'm not finished my last question. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just my last follow-up question, which I hope I didn't forget just now, was to make sure that, I just forgot it, man. Thanks, Mary Ann. I appreciate it.
Sorry.
I'm joking.
She said my name.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's fine.
All right, we'll come back to you, Vice Chair Washington, when you remember.
Thanks.
Delegate Lasanti.
Try to channel it. Mine's just a quick question, I guess. In the meantime, can we try to find out what transportation systems this bill would affect? Because I think we're all kind of in different ways asking that question. So, so then the next time we discuss this, we have a better idea. And because I did note that we didn't have any comments from any transportation service. The only comments that we had was really from, I think, Howard County, and I think there was another county in there that talked about having to move centers because that was where their focus was. But now I think this is really more about how they operate their bus route.
Right, exactly. And the counties, as we mentioned, the counties felt like this was something that was definitely doable. And the thinking is that, particularly for jurisdictions that maybe don't have as many early voting centers and don't have the best transportation options, that people having better access to being able to stop in front of their early voting center would really help a lot of people.
I guess my question is more along the lines of some statewide, are all of the transportation systems run by the government, or are there some that are run by, are they contracted out to private entities? Are they or the authorities, or, I don't really have a sense of that.
Some are contracted out.
Okay.
And the bill says a public bus route, so I don't know. I think that this bill would focus in on the public ones, but that's another question that we'll note and take back for.
Well, they could be contract out. They could
to
be
the public,
but contracted out, which it may or may not be relevant.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a sense of who the other players are.
Right. Great question. Thank you, Delegate Lasanti. Delegate Long.
Real quick, if we could get some clarification from MTA, if this bill would pass with this amendment, what effects it would have on the routes, because I do have some concerns. I know 2 voting centers we have, and it might be a half mile one way, but again, it's a 1 mile round trip, and I just see it being problematic for people depending on the bus to get to work on time. Thank you.
All right. Oh, I didn't see your hand, Delegate Jones.
I just wanted to say one thing for the record. There's never been an opportunity that I have not taken my son to vote with me. And I remember carrying that car seat and walking any more than a half a mile. I could barely make it from the car into the Target with carrying that big old butterball. So for me, I just wanted to be on the record that carrying a car seat more than a half a mile on a public after getting off a public bus to exercise my right to vote, that would be a lot. And so I'm looking forward to when we can vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Jones. Delegate Lasanti, is your hand up from the last time, or did you have a comment? You're on mute. Okay, you're good. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so we are going to, that was a great discussion. Thank you, everyone. We will hold House Bill 656 until the next opportune time. Moving forward to House Bill 655, Local Government County Commissioner Elections District Voting. Let me pull this bill up in my notes here. Okay, so this legislation requires that an election of a county commissioner to represent a specific district has to be decided by a plurality of the votes within that district. Meaning that if a county has commissioners, that they must be elected by the people of that district. There is an amendment on this bill. If you all should have gotten that by email. And the amendment adds county council. So currently the bill is for county commissioners. The amendment adds county council as well. And then it also adds in district voting in Calvert, Charles, Garrett, and St. Mary's counties. Stan, if you can, I want to make sure I got the explanation of the amendments right. So if you can go ahead and say anything that needs to be added around the amendments.
Sure, just, yeah, that was correct explanation. It also clarifies that the bill affects the county, the elections for county officials that take place in 2022 and doesn't have any effect on any officials in office before that time. And just to explain, the reason that we have to amend the local laws of those 4 counties is to resolve a conflict between this new state law and those local laws. The way that the code is interpreted, if there's a conflict between a state law and a local law enacted by the General Assembly, it's resolved in favor of the local law. So we need to amend those local laws to make sure that everything is consistent.
All right, Delegate Long.
Just for clarification, we have seven different council members, and they are voted by their district. Okay, we have 1 county executive. Am I understanding that we'd have more than 1 county executive? That's kind of interpreting it. I'm just trying to ask for clarification. It said the majority of a district. Am I correct?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question, but Stan, if you do.
My question is, are county executives elected countywide?
The bill, but yes, but the bill by its terms only applies to council members and county commissioners. So it doesn't have any effect on county executive elections.
Okay, I'm not familiar with commissioners. We have county council and we have, is a county councilman like a commissioner? Like county?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Delegate Shoemaker and then Delegate Feldmark.
I have a question. So what specific counties would this bill be applicable to? I mean, who aren't doing things the way that this bill contemplates? And then I have a philosophical question, why would we tell local counties how to structure their local governments?
I can answer the question as to which are affected.
Yeah.
So this is St. Mary's, Charles, Calvert, Queen Anne's, Garrett, and Cecil.
Okay. Do we know if any of those folks have been on this particular proposal?
Several are opposed.
Okay. All right, thanks.
To answer your second question, Delegate Shoemaker, from the hearing that we had on this bill, the intention is to ensure that the communities who are being represented have actual accurate and fair representation and not diluted. There's extensive conversation about this at the hearing that for voters who are in a district, if you're having in-district voting, that those voters are the ones that elect the person that represents them.
Well, thanks for that. I guess that's one of the reasons why a lot of us support the notion of having single member districts in the House of Delegates. But, you know, I think it's up to the local governments, though, to pick what form their local government would operate under. I think it's up for the people of those particular jurisdictions to decide that for themselves. I mean, I was a county commissioner in Carroll County. We have single member commissioners by district, but you know, the people of Carroll County voted for that referendum to do that. So that's the difference.
Thank you, Delegate Shoemaker. Vice Chair Washington.
I'll defer to Delegate Feldmark, who had her hand up for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Feldmark. Go ahead.
That's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just really quickly to Delegate Long's question, I think, you know, comparing this to our frame of reference representing parts of Baltimore County, this would bring those districted seats in line with the way Baltimore County elects our county council members, which is the residents of the district vote for the representative of that district. And I mean, I think that's a pretty fundamental piece of how a representative democracy is supposed to work. And I think that's aligned with local control, because you can't get more local than the district, right? And so if you want local control, you should support the local residents of that election district representing their own, electing their own representative. So, you know, I think this really is pretty straightforward, and I look forward to supporting it.
Thank you, Delegate Feldmark. We just lost Delegate Lasanti. Delegate Vice Chair Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, so just so I understand, right now in these counties, a person who runs to represent District 1 can lose District 1, but win the rest of the county and still represent District 1. Exactly,
yes.
To me, that doesn't sound like they would represent District 1's interests if the rest of the county is, if they won the rest of the county but represent District 1. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Got it. Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear. And this makes sure that one representative from District 1 represents that district.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you for breaking it down.
And I'll move the amendment if there aren't any more questions.
Second.
All right. The amendment has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment to HB 655, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, the amendment carries, and now we are on the bill.
I move the bill as amended.
Second.
All right, the bill as amended has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. And then Delegate Lasanti back into the room. I think we lost Delegate Shoemaker as well. Hearing no discussion on the bill as amended, all those in favor of House Bill 655, favorable with amendment, raise your hand. Any opposed? Delegate Long. And no abstentions. All right, there's that. Okay, so we've moved forward with House Bill 655, favorable with amendment. Making my little note there. Okay, so House Bill 222.
Some great numbers.
Mhm. Good show.
Yes. So I wanted to have an initial discussion on this bill. Let's try to take maybe 10 minutes so that we can all have a little break before our bill hearings. This bill does have significant amendments. You all have a reprint. You have a reprint in your email. And I wanted to go over some of the amendments and help us to start to digest it so that we can move towards voting soon. So just to give you a sense and some background around these amendments, because since we last discussed this bill last session, there was an entire election where we got to experience what happens and doesn't happen when it comes to incarcerated individuals being able to vote. The advocates who are on the front lines of this had some really important changes around accountability and ensuring equal access to the ballot for eligible incarcerated individuals. So you'll notice that these amendments move from corrections, taking the lead and with little oversight, to ensuring that SBE, who of course has the role of our elections, implementing our elections in the state, takes the lead with partnership and requirements of corrections and oversight within the ombudsman as well.
Madam Chair, I'm very sorry to interrupt. I have to go to my local revenues meeting. Is it okay if I do that since you're in discussion now?
Sure, no problem. Thank you so much, Stan.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Alrighty, no problem.
No, Stan, you got to stay.
I would love to, but I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, see you, Stan.
Bye-bye.
So in terms of some of the amendments, some of them include just additional signage around the right to vote and information around the fact that individuals have the ability to vote. It includes having a secure mail area so that for election related mail, and so that that can be collected in a timely fashion because we know there are deadlines related to voting. It includes having a drop box at the jail so that incarcerated individuals, so that SBE can pick up the mail there directly, just like we're all able to use, well, we were able to use drop boxes in the last election. It also ensures that election mail that arrives after a person is released. So let's say I requested my ballot and I am incarcerated and I am released, and my ballot arrives at the correctional facility for me, that is forwarded to me at my address that's on file. It also includes making sure that an employee is trained to carry this out. Most important of all, the amendments include an ombudsman so that there can be actual accountability and support for implementing all of these. Again, one of the biggest challenges that we saw in the 2020 election is that having correctional systems all over the state who have varying levels and varying interest in carrying out jail voting was a huge challenge. So ensuring just the fairness and equity and just that all of this is taking place is why we include the ombudsman. And I think the last major thing that I wanted to flag is also the toll-free hotline, so that if a incarcerated voter has a question, it's not like they can go talk to a candidate or anything like that. And we don't want them to have to pay to try to get information about voting. So SBE would help set up and make sure they have access to a toll-free hotline so that they could call and have just access to be able to ask any questions. So those are the major changes to the bill. I definitely want to encourage everyone to read through the reprint and wanted to see if there were any questions. We do have two of the advocates who were on the front lines of this on the line as well. These have also been worked out with SBE, who don't have any issues with the bill. So wanted to open up for any questions or discussion. All right, wonderful. So, oh, did you have something, Delegate Feldmark?
No, I was just about to move favorable.
Well, yeah, why don't we move the amendments and we can discuss the bill the next time. So so I hear a move favorable. Is there a second on the amendments? Well, you know what? Let me give you all time to digest them. Or is there readiness or comfort with voting on the amendments? Do you guys want some time to read? Delegate.
Delegate Lasani.
Sorry.
I thought she was going to say something. I
Oh,
apologize.
okay. All right, well, hearing no objections to voting on the amendments, then there is a motion on the table to add the amendments to the bill. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the bill amendments, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, Delegate Long opposed to the amendments. The amendments carry. So we will, Delegate Washington?
I'm sorry, this is on 222?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we're not going to vote this yet, just because I'll give everyone time to just further review. We sent the reprint this morning. So please can take a look, and like most likely next week, we'll take a vote. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Delegate Washington.
I just want to thank you for the 15 minutes to eat before our committee. Thank you so much.
So never say I didn't give you guys anything.
And thank you all for reminding me. I jumped off to get for the bill hearing, only to realize that it was not at 1 o'clock. It's at 1:30.
Oh
Wow.
no, it's one of those days. Well, thank you guys for the
No
great
day confusion.
Right, very true. Thanks for the great discussion, everyone. As you can tell, our rhythm as a committee is meeting on pretty much on Thursdays after floor. So we'll continue to try to hold that.
Rolling.
Yes, exactly. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.